Here in the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in the world on the 6th of July of 2026. Today we have a lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about the conflict on the territory of Ukraine, where the Russians during the previous 24 hours carried out one of the most resultive attack on the territory of the city of KYIV. And the thing is that the Russians, as a result of attack, managed to destroy something big. As of now, we have lots of rumors on this matter. Some sources stated that the Russians destroyed a warehouse. Some sources reported that the Russians destroyed some fuel depot. But there are several sources that reported that the Russians, as a result of attack, managed to destroy a warehouse where the Ukrainians were storing uranium depleted shells or something like this. So lots of rumors, lots of theories we can find right now in the internet. But one thing is clear, that according to all these videos that you can see right now in front of your screens, the Russians managed to destroy something big, and we can see lots of secondary detonations. The sources reported that this micro district that you can see right now in front of your screens was almost reduced to ruins as a result of the secondary detonation. Furthermore, the sources reported that the Ukrainian authorities announced the evacuation of this entire micro district, and 1,600 people or families are obliged to evacuate immediately. The Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation this morning published a list of enterprises that the Russians hadn't destroyed. So the Russians, as you can see, as a result of this overnight attack, tried to destroy and to deal damage just to military facilities. The Russians didn't attack objects of energy infrastructure or gas stations through this massive attack. The Russians were attacking gas stations as a result of the daily attacks, but not as a result of the massive attack. So lots of enterprises were damaged and destroyed, and most of these enterprises were involved in production of drones that the Ukrainians used to attack deep inside of the territory of Russia. Furthermore, today we received another very interesting report published by pro-Ukrainian sources that the United States of America told the President Ukraine Zelensky, or shared with intelligence information, that the next 2 weeks the Russians are planning 2 or 3 more massive attacks through the entire territory of Ukraine, just with one purpose: to use the situation when the Ukrainians have a shortage of PAC-3 interceptors. So the reason why this massive attack during the previous night was so successful is that the Ukrainians don't have missiles. They don't have missiles. The Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Fedorov, is urging the Western countries to provide more missiles. According to information we have, the Ukrainians have purchased missiles, but the missiles should be delivered to Ukraine at the beginning of 2027. So now the Ukrainians are trying to find the schema how to take missiles, PAC-3 interceptors from the European countries, and the Ukrainians will replace these interceptors from the European countries with the batches of these missiles of early 2027. So this is the schema that the Ukrainians are trying to implement right now with European countries. And once again, the Ukrainian sources stated that the Russians are ready to carry out another massive attack even this upcoming night between the 6th and the 7th of July of 2026. And the most important detail that was stated by the US authorities is that the Russians will try to use the situation when the Ukrainians have shortage of missiles with the purpose to reduce the Ukraine's military infrastructure to ruins. The Ukrainians have been building this military infrastructure since the beginning of the special military operation. The Ukrainians found technology, something they developed by themselves, how to produce missiles, how to produce drones. Of course, they still import a lot of parts from the Western countries, maybe sometimes even from China, but the most important thing that the Ukrainians were building this infrastructure, and now we see that the Russians reducing everything everything to ruins, which means that if the Russians continue attacking military facilities through Ukraine, then most likely the Ukrainians would be dropped significantly back, probably till the level of 2024. And they sometimes, in some fields, in some areas, the Ukrainians would be forced to start everything from the beginning. And this is, of course, a very bad situation for the armed forces of Ukraine. Tomorrow is the NATO summit. Tomorrow, the President of Ukraine, Zelensky, will try to convince every single European leader, every single Western leader to provide him PAC-3 interceptors, but something tells me that this is not the case. And nobody will provide the Ukrainian side the PAC-3 interceptors, and most likely this can be a turning point in the conflict on the territory of Ukraine. At the same time, before the beginning of the NATO summit, the Ukrainians also attacked deep inside of the territory of Russia using hundreds of drones. Zelensky tried to get as strong as possible cards before the beginning of the NATO summit. He launched probably the last drones he had. More than 300 of drones were recorded by pro-Ukrainian sources. As for the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation, they recorded more than 700 of drones during the previous 24 hours that the Ukrainians were using to attack deep inside of the territory of Russia, and lots of videos and pictures were published on this matter. For example, in this video we can see the Russian air defense systems through the Bryansk region that the Russians deployed these days with the purpose to reinforce the Moscow direction. And as you can see in this video, the Ukrainians between the 1st and the 6th of July attacked several S-400 air defense systems, or maybe decoys. Another important video is coming from the area of the Azov Sea, and in this video we can see more strikes carried out by the Ukrainians, and here we see how Ukrainians were attacking vessels, tankers, oil tanks of Russia with drones, and as a result of these attacks, lots of objects of energy infrastructure and commercial vessels were damaged and maybe even destroyed by the armed forces of Ukraine. Furthermore, the Ukrainians during the previous night, according to information we have, were attacking objects of energy infrastructure on the territory of Crimea, and as a result of these attacks, several substations were damaged and maybe even destroyed by the armed forces of Ukraine. As of the end of the 6th of July of 2026, local sources reported about power outages through the region. Furthermore, the Ukrainians attacked deep inside of the territory of Russia, or at least made an attempt to do this. The sources reported that explosions were recorded through the city of Yaroslavl, but we don't have lots of pictures. We have just one fire anomaly from the Yaroslav oil refinery. This fire anomaly was recorded through this territory, and we have just a picture where we can see a black smoke over this facility. Maybe the Ukrainians hit another oil tank on the territory of this oil refinery, or maybe the smoke that we can see on this picture is the smoke and the consequences of the drone that was trying to attack the refinery but was intercepted by Russians. Another important territory that was attacked by the Ukrainians is the city by the name of Omsk. More precisely, the Ukrainians attacked the Omsk oil refinery. And as for this territory, during the previous 24 hours, we received lots of videos where we can see Ukrainian drones that were flying in the direction of the oil refinery. The Russians were trying to bring all these drones down, and the sources reported that the Russians were forced to use Su-57 as air defense unit. In this video we can see the Russian Su-57 that was flying over the city of Omsk with the purpose to detect and destroy Ukraine's drones. But according to information we have, as a result of this attack, the Ukrainians managed to hit the Omsk oil refinery and to deal damage. In this video we can see a fire that broke out right after the Ukrainians attacked this facility. The most important thing of this overnight attack is the distance, of course. The distance between the territory of Ukraine and the city of Omsk and the Omsk oil refinery is around 2,500 kilometers. The Ukrainians claim that they were using their drones from the territory of Ukraine to attack the city of Omsk and the Omsk refinery, but if you ask my opinion, I don't believe that the Ukrainians were attacking the city of Omsk from the territory of Ukraine. I think this is my opinion, and you will not be able to find any proofs about this opinion in the internet. It's just my opinion, but I believe that the Ukrainians were using either the territory of Russia and probably trucks on the territory of Russia to attack the city of Omsk, but we don't have any proofs about this, or the Ukrainians were using the airspace of neighboring states to attack the city of Omsk. I think that one of these options is the correct situation with the city of Omsk, but not the territory of Ukraine itself. As of now, we don't have anything on this matter. Probably the Russians are trying to investigate the situation, because with this attack, the Ukrainians are trying to convince the NATO countries and probably the Russians that they still have possibilities to use the eastern parts of Ukraine to attack deep inside of the territory of Russia. But we know that this is not the case, because the Russians, since the beginning of April, destroyed significant number of gas stations, of parking sites, and the Russians continue doing this. Lots of facilities, logistic hubs were destroyed, and basically, as of now, as I see the situation, I'm not sure whether the Ukrainians are able to use the eastern parts of Ukraine for such a strikes deep inside of the territory of Russia. There was another option, another case for this attack, but as of now, we don't know. Probably nobody knows for sure how exactly the Ukrainians managed to do this. And as for the parking sites, as for the gas stations, it seems that during the previous 24 hours, the Russians destroyed probably dozens of objects of such infrastructure. For example, we have even a fire anomaly from the city of KYIV. We have a fire anomaly, and for example, this parking site was destroyed. We have a fire anomaly recorded through this area. We have some facilities and objects of military infrastructure that were recorded through this territory that were attacked by Russians. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians attacked the city of Pavlograd, and the Russians attacked this parking site and this service, and as a result of attack, more vehicles and more trucks were destroyed. And of course, the Russians destroyed a lot of gas stations through the southern regions. For example, 2 gas stations were destroyed between the cities of Odessa and Nikolaev in the north, to the north and to the south, and we have a lot of videos on this matter. The Russians, by the way, for the first time, probably since the fuel war, published a very detailed video where we can see how exactly the Russians were attacking using drones gas stations between the cities of Dnipro, Zaporozhye and Nikolaev. And in this video we can see how exactly the Russians were attacking these facilities. Furthermore, the Russians continued attacking the city of Zaporozhye. In this video we can see another gas station destroyed through the northwestern parts of the settlement. The Russians continue hunting and destroying gas stations and warehouses and logistic hubs through the city of Dnipro and the Dnipro agglomeration. Here we can see a logistic hub that was destroyed by Russians, and according to information we have, the Russians have attacked this facility for second time since the beginning of April of 2026. The Russians continued attacking different objects through the Sumy region, through the city of Kharkiv, and so on. And we see that the Russians don't stop. The Russians continue the situation. And for example, as for the previous 24 hours, the gas station was also destroyed along MO3 road between the cities of Slaviansk and Kharkiv. This gas station in the northern parts of the city was destroyed. We have a picture in this matter, and we have this video where we can see how the fire crews were trying to extinguish the fire and to save at least something, but it seems they managed to save just ruins of this gas station. The Russians will continue attacking gas stations through the territory of Ukraine, and now we can say that almost every single gas station or every single object of energy infrastructure to the left through the eastern, southern, and the northeastern parts of Ukraine was damaged by the Russians. We're talking about everything that is outside of this black line, everything what is inside of this black line and through the central and the western parts of Ukraine haven't been attacked by Russians yet, but several cases were recorded through the Poltava region, but it's just a single cases. But due to the current situation and due to the fact that sooner or later objects of energy infrastructure would be finished through the territory outside of this black line, most likely then the Russians will shift focus further in the direction of the central part of Ukraine. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation on the ground. As for the previous 24 hours, we received lots of very interesting updates. First, let's talk about the Zaporozhye direction, because it seems that the Russians launched an artillery preparation and just fire preparation, aviation preparation. It seems that the Russians right now are tasked to reduce till ruins the Orekhov citadel. The Russians use all types of weapons they have with the purpose just to soften as much as possible Ukraine's defenses in this area. In these videos and these episodes, we can see how the Russians were attacking the central part of the city of Orekhov, this micro district where the Ukrainians have main forces, and it seems that the ground operation, the assault of the city of Orekhov is brewing and is going to start very, very soon. Now let's move further. As for the city of Konstantinovka, during the previous 24 hours, as we discussed, the Ukrainians rejected the Konstantinovka ceasefire. The Russians proposed to the Ukrainians the Konstantinovka ceasefire with the purpose to hand over 13,500 bodies of fallen soldiers, but the Ukrainians rejected this proposal. From their side, the Ukrainians published a video with dozens of probably episodes where Ukrainians were raising flags or where Ukrainians were revealing their positions through the city of Konstantinovka, trying to confirm that the city is under complete and strong control of the armed forces of Ukraine. The Russians published this video where we can see how several Ukrainian soldiers that were trying to confirm their positions were captured by Russians, and this is the situation. Anyway, most likely the Ukrainian side will deny the loss of the city of Konstantinovka at least until the end of the NATO summit, and when the NATO summit ends, the Ukrainians will start slowly but step by step correct and adjust the map in the area of the city of Konstantinovka in Russia's favor, and this process will take place probably time between 3-4 weeks till 2-3 months. Another important update we received from the area to the east of the city of Slaviansk. Today, pro-Ukrainian sources, 3 or 4 independent pro-Ukrainian sources stated that the Russians and first sabotage and reconnaissance groups of the armed forces of the Russian Federation entered the former Slaviansk power station. Pro-Ukrainian sources reported that the Ukrainians sent crews with the purpose to stabilize the situation and to force the Russians to fall back from this area, and by the evening of the 6th of July of 2026, pro-Ukrainian sources reported that the situation in the area of the former Slaviansk power station was stabilized, but we understand that these updates were published by pro-Ukrainian sources, which means that everything is possible through the city of Nikolaevka and through its northern part. But the most important thing is that for the first time since the beginning of battle in this direction, pro-Ukrainian sources confirmed that the Russians entered answer to the Slaviansk power station, and we're trying to dig in deeper. Most likely during the NATO summits, the Russians will confirm Russian control over the city of Liman, and we believe that tomorrow or the day after tomorrow we will receive another batch of videos and episodes from the Russian side with dozens of flags raised through different towns and cities along the line of combat contact, towns and cities like Liman, Nikolaevka, Orechov, maybe the city of Kupiansk. The Russians would try to once again show that they have strong positions, and we expect that the sabotage and reconnaissance groups that were recorded through the city of Slaviansk during the previous 24 hours were tasked to answer the power station and to raise Russian flags with the purpose to make videos of this. So in coming 24-48 hours we will understand whether this situation is exactly like this or something else. Another important area is the northern Kupiansk direction. The Russians continue their offensive operation along the river Voskol. During the previous 24 hours, additional changes were recorded. The Russians continue advancing. As for the biggest changes or major changes of the previous 24 hours, they're coming from the city of Bely Kolodys. And these are the changes on the ground between the previous 3 days, between the 3rd and the end of the 6th of July of 2026. As you can see, the Russians improved their position significantly, and the most important thing is that the Russians managed to cut the settlement of Bely Kolodys in pincers. I'm not sure whether the Ukrainians are able to hold their positions for a very long period of time. Obviously, they will try to hold their positions till the end of the NATO summit, but after the end of the NATO summit, everything is possible. And it seems that the Russians are tasked to take the settlement of Bely Kolodys under complete control. And if Russians take this settlement under complete control, this is going to be something like a breakthrough, and the Russians would be able to maintain the lines along the border between the settlements of Riznikova and the Volchansky foothold. So in coming days, it seems that many territories would be colored and would change their colors. And that's it for today. The Military with Summary channel reminds us we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for your watching.